Not too recently, I decided I was going to become a video game collector, and my quest to collect video games has been nothing but a pure joy. Most of the time. So I figured I'd let you know about some of my less fortunate stories in my quest for video games. So without further hesitation, let's get started. The other day I was out on an adventure as per usual, and I had a little extra cash in my wallet. So I figured I'd go search for a place to pick up a cheap game for my collection. For a good while there, it wasn't too successful of a hunt. I searched and searched for any retro game store and couldn't find a single thing. So I desperately resorted to Google Maps and found one about 10 minutes from my location. So with that knowledge, I hopped in my car and started my drive. As I was grooving along, I realized the location around me was slowly changing. From the bright and happy location I started in, I was slowly turning into a dark and, well, sort of shady area. But that didn't stop me. I then pulled up into a dark parking lot with what looked like an abandoned restaurant and a shady retro game store. Now, I don't like to judge a book by its cover, so I waddled my way inside in hopes for some kind of retro goodness I could bring home. Upon entry, I was greeted to a very tall, big gentleman covered in tattoos, giving me the "I'm going to rip you apart limb by limb" look, and then we shared an awkward stare for what felt like 3 hours, but was probably 30 seconds. It was only slightly uncomfortable. Then, to break the silence, I politely asked, "By any chance, would you happen to have any NES games?" And without saying a word, the guy points to the back corner of the store underneath a flickering, creepy light to a small shelf with like 3 to 4 NES games on it. So I cautiously made my way back to the NES game shelf just to see what they had in stock, and I see ice hockey and NES Golf. So I figured I'll get both of them. They're not too expensive, they're not too cheap though. I pick up ice hockey and it sticks to my hand. After I scraped ice hockey off my hand, I decided to walk up to the cash register and check out with just NES Golf. So I look straight into the cashier's eyes yet again, and I go, "Do you accept cash?" He looks at me and says, "No." So I go, "Okay, do you accept credit?" He looks at me and says, "No, only cash." What? Anyway, I ignored that whole ordeal, and I get out my wallet and ask, "How much do I owe ya?" And the guy behind the desk says, $50. $50 for NES Golf? And then I looked back into his eyes and realized he was serious. Yeah, I mean, NES Golf? Paying $50? That sounds reasonable. So to avoid getting beaten, I paid the $50 begrudgingly because $50 for golf on the NES? Anyway, I hurried out to my car and hurried up and got out of there. After all that, I had finally gotten home, ready to hopefully see if my golf on the NES worked, and my grandma was there, and she came up and said, "Oh, that looks awfully familiar," and then proceeded to pull out a bin of NES games and show me that all of the games that I had just paid for were already in the family. And then she gave them to me. And I'm now the proud owner of Golf on the NES.